Well, welcome to Anything Cricket. Let's talk this straight drive edition. Rohan Chambers, the last time I saw you looking so happy, I think would have been one of the matches that we managed to win back when we played in the competition in the Cayman Islands. I know you know why you're happy. The USA doing quite well. And of course,
Mhm.
you are very much a part of USA cricket, even although I know your heart is still with West Indies, with Jamaica, but you are very much a part of USA cricket. I know you do some umpiring, and I believe you might have done some coaching at some point in time as well. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Yes, I did some coaching about 10 years ago. And apart from umpiring in various regional matches as well as national tournaments, I'm also one of the executive members of the Youth Cricket DC organization. So I help with administration and running youth cricket tournaments and matches in the DC region.
Mm-hmm. So, you've been taking in the World Cup. You've not been hiding that. You've been sending out the photos and so on. I hope you remember to say hi to your dad as I asked.
Yes, I did. Yes.
Fair enough. Yes. So how has it been, generally speaking, before we get into what you really want to talk about? How have you enjoyed the experience so far? Tell us about the matches you've seen.
Well, I have been watching a lot of replays just because of the games being at 10:30 during work time for me. So weekends are when I get to really get to watch a full game. Uh, I watched a couple of games live today. Wait, one today and one um yesterday. So yesterday it was Netherlands against South Africa at the new stadium in New York, and then today the big one, India against Pakistan. Again at the new stadium in New York.
What was that?
But just
Oh, go
based on
ahead.
what
Go
I've
ahead.
seen so far, go ahead.
No, I was asking what was that like? What was the atmosphere like at that big game? You heard so much
So
about it before. It seemed as though the World Cup was being staged for this India-Pakistan game.
it was truly. First of all, it was sold out, so 34,000 people attended approximately, right? I have been to the last T20 World Cup was in Australia, 2022. I watched India play twice, against Zimbabwe, and then when they lost to England in the semifinal. I watched Pakistan play twice when they um, won their semifinal against New Zealand, and then when they lost the final against England. But I've never seen India play against Pakistan, and that is a bucket list match that I had to attend. The environment there, the camaraderie is second to none. Granted, you have a lot more Indian fans, uh, but still, it's just a tremendous atmosphere. Uh, Today's game had a little bit of delay because of the rain, but luckily it cleared up. It was bright and sunny around 12 o'clock there, about 12:30, and it turned out to be a very good day. Well,
You said the camaraderie. When you say camaraderie, you mean within the Indian camp independently, within the Pakistan camp independently, or do you mean between the rivals?
between the fans of each. So you find them hugging each other, walking around the stadium, shaking hands. There's no there's no tension between the two fans, right? So
Okay,
everyone
so
is
you're talking about the
happy.
Pakistani fans and the
And Indian fans,
Indian
correct?
fans
Yeah,
interacting.
correct, correct,
Okay.
correct, correct,
Uh-huh.
correct, correct, correct.
That's interesting because we've heard so much about that intense rivalry
Mhm.
that one would expect as the tension that you said was absent, but you're saying
Right.
that it wasn't like that at all.
Wasn't like that at all. Maybe it's because of where it was held. I don't know, but
Uh-huh.
I thought we were one big happy family. Everybody was together,
Mhm.
So
Okay. So what do you thought about the actual game? I mean, it was a low scoring game, and I suppose to some extent that was not shocking given all that had happened on that pitch before.
right. So I think everybody is, at least those that follow T20, are still recovering from all the high scores in the IPL, the flat tracks and the scores of 200 plus quite often. Then fast forward to now the World Cup, you have these low scores, slow pitches. In a sense, some extent, well, the New York facility, for example, they're dropping pitches, so they may take a little while to get settled. But I've seen a couple of slow pitches around the Caribbean too. But it's good for cricket. Now you have an even contest between bat and ball, right? Um, the bowlers now have a chance. Batters with good skills will come to the fore. Good. In some cases, maybe the wicket needs a little bit more help, but it certainly makes it a more even contest. So even though it was a low scoring game, it was still a competitive game, almost evenly contested up until a certain point. So it was good for the fans. It kept them on their feet, on their toes for a while. So hopefully some of these pitches get a little bit better on. Just a little bit more 20 plus run scores for each of the matches would be good. But it makes for a good bat and ball contest so far.
So where does that leave the group really? India versus Pakistan, that was an event in itself. But it also impacted, in fact, if I say impacted the group in a very serious way, that would be a gross understatement. Your own team, USA, has surprised many. 2 wins, 2 matches, 2 wins. The win against Canada, not shocking. I suppose it was a situation where whichever team had won, one could live with that and understand that. But then to take out Pakistan, well, that was a biggie. First of all, before you get to the significance of what today's result means, tell us what the win against Pakistan, the significance of that for the USA. And I don't mean for the USA team, I mean for USA cricket.
Right. So I can tell you this, right? USA has been playing international cricket from in the 70s, that I'm aware, right? There have been many former Caribbean cricketers, Ford Backus, Clayton Lambert, who have played for the USA. Also, cricketers playing for Canada too, if you want to include Canada in the same kind of hemisphere. But other immigrants from the Indian community, Pakistani community, have been involved at grassroots level for over 40 plus years now. Good. Lots of them have put in a great amount of work trying to get cricket into mainstream US with limited success, right? One of the drawbacks in the US has been the lack of turf pitches. So there are many AstroTurf pitches around, good, and many academies, but it's been a long grind for many of those people. And I'm in touch with a lot of them who have been putting in the hard work right throughout the country. And it means so much to them to see that all of their hard work throughout the years, some of which have produced some of these players, are finally paid off, good? And there's been a sense that once the team gets exposed to international competition, they will get better. And just beating Pakistan proves that possibility. So I can see that joy in a lot of those people that have put in all the hard work over the last 30, 40 years. Obviously, with a new crop of people, it creates a pathway that they can say, hey, USA can now compete internationally. I'm involved with a lot of youngsters here, and the buzz with the parents, it's remarkable. I look at some chat groups, I have like 3,000 messages. Congrats, congrats, this is good, this is good, this is good. We just started a high school, elementary school league in Virginia this weekend for the first time. We always had one in Maryland. No, it was Virginia's time. And to see the joy in those kids' faces when India beat Pakistan, it's truly remarkable. You have to be here on the ground to see these people's faces and to really understand how much it means to them. And of course, the players. I mean, they've been playing for years now. They got ODI status a few years ago. Then came COVID. So there hasn't been much international competition, but to finally get something in and then to win, not only against our rivals Canada, but also against Pakistan means so much to them and the fans as well. So it's been great.
Well, Rohan, we've been joined by David Brooks. Well, I don't know if you've met him before, but he's an English West Indian or West Indian Englishman. I don't know. I'll let him tell you. Welcome to Anything Cricket. Let's talk. The straight drive edition, David.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes, I've seen David on your program before, Philip.
Yes. Okay. So David, well, I was going to ask you. I'm tempted to say, how has it been? But that may not be a fair question because I think the answer should be obvious. But I'll ask anyhow. How has it been? Yeah, David? David seems to be experiencing some internet issues. Okay, so while we wait for David to try to sort that out, we get back to the situation with the USA and that group. So Pakistan losing to India. How does that position the USA to advance?
It's very good for USA. So USA has India to play on Wednesday, and then Ireland to play on Friday. Obviously, if USA defeats India, that's great, fantastic, automatic qualification for the next round. But assuming that India being the stronger team prevails, USA now has Ireland to play, and defeating Ireland will put them through the next round. There's a slight possibility that even losing to Ireland could still find them through, but USA will have to make sure that any losses doesn't come in a heavy capacity. They want to make sure they're competitive if that's going to be the case. But it's very good for USA that Pakistan lost today.
Well, the thing about it is that you now have your fate in your own hands, because if you win one of the remaining two matches, that's it. Nobody can catch you. But desperate times for England, really, for desperate times for Pakistan. Sorry, and well, many people would have expected, probably everybody would have expected Pakistan to advance from the group, but it's going to be very difficult for them now.
Yes. When I looked at some of the dismissals today, some of the batsmen played some careless shots. Granted, Bumrah bowled really well. There's one over, I think he got 2 wickets in it. It was really good bowling by him, and the crowd is really behind the India team. But there's no way that Pakistan should lose that match today. They should not have lost that match today. I mean, granted, there was good bowling. At one point, it was a run of ball needed, and they had like 6 wickets left in hand. There's no way you should be losing that game, you know.
So what made the difference then? What made them lose?
Well, combination. There's some terrible shots by the Pakistani batters, not rotating the strike. At some point, I think they didn't even try any of the creative shots, the ramp or the scoop, whatever it was. Nothing. They just got stuck in this zone, and it just continued. And then after a while, the pressure built up to the point where it was too late. And 2 overs to go, I thought they lost the game, even from 3 overs to go. But good bowling, coupled with a couple of bad shots, playing across the line a couple of times. I forgot which batter did that a couple of times. 2 batters, I think, played across the line. And not being creative when batting, trying to stay on top. So all of that combined into their loss.
Okay, David Brooke is back. Let's see if he has sorted out his technical problems. David?
I've sorted out technical issues regarding the audio, Philip, at some cost to the clarity on the video. But I figured that, above all, you're a radio man first and foremost.
Well, I would say that we want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We can compromise with that.
Exactly. I think I caught Rohan talking about the Pakistan innings.
Yeah. Your take, first of all, on that group. That's Group A. All the teams have played 2 matches. India 2 wins and 4 points. USA 2 wins and 4 points. Canada 1 win and they've got 2 points. Pakistan and Ireland yet to get off the mark. USA in a good position to qualify if they can win one of the remaining 2 matches. And what's your take on the performance of the Pakistan side so far? Really, not a whole lot you can say about India. I suppose they've won 2-2, even although their batting let them down today. But what's your take on Group A, David?
It's a fascinating World Cup. It's really delivering, and I'm really enjoying, seeing the different conditions in the USA on the grounds there, and almost they've taken some of the limelight off the West Indies as the host nation. Because people are focused on these new venues with this unpredictable drop-in pitches. So this group playing in the States, obviously, and that's added to the interest, I think. And the fact that USA have put in such strong performances is also fueling some real momentum. I mean, that innings 94 that Rohan referred to, the Bajan, his name just escapes me for the moment.
Aaron Jones.
Thank you very much, saving my embarrassment. But I've not heard of him before. I have to say, I missed him at regional level in the West Indies. He hadn't registered with me, and but seeing the way, I mean, talk about momentum. That was a guy that only, I think he hit 10 sixes in that innings, and he only hit 12 in his entire career before that. He was celebrating every six with a fist pump, which is not something I'd seen.
Yeah, well, David continues to have some issues there, but he certainly said that he was not familiar with Aaron Jones. David spent quite a bit of time in the Caribbean, Rohan.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're aware, Aaron would have played a couple of matches for Barbados before he settled on playing for the US, so to speak.
Right. So he was born. He was one of 3 members on that USA team that were born in the USA. But if you contrast him with Stephen Taylor, Taylor grew up in the USA, played all his cricket, his teenage cricket in the USA. I think he played like a year for Melbourne in Jamaica or 2, but that was after he was like past 20. Aaron developed his cricket in Barbados.
Yes.
So you could argue he's more Bayesian developed than US developed, right? So that you know, and he was under a lot of pressure. One of the US writers, Peter De La Pena, was on his case for his slow strike rate, right?
Oh.
Yes, he was heavily criticized left, right, and center. And he apparently fits the ODI mode, right? Batter, but for T20, it hasn't been successful. And I have been unfortunate to umpire a couple of T20 matches here in DC with him playing, and he never made any runs whenever he played. He always swiped after 3 balls and got out. So I guess he's trying to overcompensate for his slow batting otherwise, but it just paid off, and something is working right for him because he's very confident. He's not afraid. He's taking on the bowling, and he just keep everybody quiet. So I'm happy for him.
Yeah, that's a very, very pleasing story because I've often found myself having to argue that human beings are dynamic creatures. We tend to believe that what a person can do today is the full extent of their capacity to do anything. We see it in cricket all the time. And I'm not going to call any names now because I may call the same names I've called before, and that may be overdoing it a bit. But I believe that people can improve, but they've got to want to improve. They've got to do some of the right things. They've got to work on it. And we've had some cricketers who've done that. And, it's so difficult for people to recognize it. I mean, Shea Hope, for example, I was always convinced Shea Hope could become a good T20 cricketer because I know the young man. I've seen him from under 19 days. Okay.
Right.
I know his capacity to play strokes. I saw his performances and his dominance in one international cricket. And I virtually watched, because I see him at domestic level as well, and I watched the transformation, if you want to call it that. And I always felt he could do it. But we tend to have this putting people in a box and leaving them there. So that story about Aaron Jones, I think, is really heartening, and I think it should be an inspiration to anybody who's striving to do something.
Yes, and just to support that too, you probably know this, but I'm a firm believer that if you're a good red ball cricketer, right, you can transfer those skills to T20 quite easily. It may take some people a longer time than others, but Aaron had the foundation of playing proper red ball cricket in Barbados growing up.
Yes, he did.
Right, so he has batted for long periods, right? So you know how to adjust to the shorter format of the game, right? And compared to, just to throw in the US perspective, USA does not play multi-day red ball cricket domestically.
Yeah, and that's the main challenge for a lot of those. Yeah.
Yeah. You may have the odd 50-over league here and there, but the majority of adults in USA for men play 40 to 45-over cricket. They can't bat for very long.
Yeah.
The ones that have grown up here in the US. So Aaron's strength is that he came from Barbados, learned to play cricket back proper way, and he can easily transform that into T20, and now is his time.
Okay, well, let's go for David Brooke again. David, you're saying.
Well, I just echo that point that Rohan's made there. You look at some of the England players underperforming in white ball cricket. It's because they've given up red ball cricket. It's a direct corollary of that. You lose the time in the middle. You forget what it's like to adapt to different conditions, to build an innings, to deal with the moving ball. You forget all that. Joss Buttler is a case in point. He's come back to form recently. Only plays T20 now. Hasn't played a first-class cricket match in years since he was dropped from the England Test team. Moeen Ali, T20 only. Jofra Archer, obviously now in his comeback, England are saying T20 only for you, even though we know his passion for red ball cricket and his ability there. And you've got Jakes batting number 3 and opening the bowling. You know, purely T20 player really at the moment, because that's what his, that's what he's going for. He still does play some red ball cricket and played a couple of test matches. But Rohan's point stands. The guys with first-class cricket experience are winning out. And people only playing T20, I think they have their limitations because, as we've seen from the Pakistan wicketkeeper, he's got his reputation on the back of CPL and PSL performances. When it comes to the international stage, there's a step up. Mm-hmm. And, it's all very well, enjoy the franchise riches, but unless you're supporting that with international 50 over and test cricket, or at least regional first-class cricket, you're limiting yourself. Liam Livingstone would be my other example, Philip. Hasn't really performed with the bat for quite a while now, but he's hanging on in there at number 6 pivotal position in the England lineup because he bowls a few sort of part-time spinners. He can turn it both ways. So can a lot of people, club cricketers in the nets can turn it both ways. And we saw Jake's limitations exposed in the Australia-England match with the assault from David Warner and Travis Head. Knocked him out of the attack after 1 over and set the tone for an Australia innings that was just too much for England. So, but going back to a question about the group involving India and Pakistan, Pakistan have now it's gone. But Pakistan have had a very poor preparation for this tournament. They had a dismal, in weather-wise and performance-wise, series against England in England as a warm-up for the World Cup. And that hasn't worked. Only 2.5 matches were played and they performed dismally. They've got a coach in Kirsten who coaches by Zoom. It shows how much he loves Pakistan. It reminds me of the days when West Indies appointed a succession of Australian coaches who couldn't wait to leave after the last test to go back to their mansions in New South Wales and would never dream of watching any regional cricket. We've got, and that's what's happened to Pakistan going for this coaching by Zoom option with Gary Kirsten. It's interesting when the national anthem came on.
Let's hope their Zoom experience is better than what we are experiencing now.
Well, yes. Let's hope so. It's not as good as being in the real thing, a coach, in situ, as it were. So I do think there's a problem there. And the nepotism, involved in the team selections is obviously an issue, number of issues. But going back to the performances, or talking about the performances on the field for Pakistan, it's far too inconsistent, isn't it? And that they paid a heavy price for that in the game against the USA when Mohammed Amir was given the task of bowling the super over. Now, I don't think that fella could have stood that scrutiny, actually. He retired from international cricket just a couple of years back, was ready to come back. But he didn't want the scrutiny of someone that has been involved in match fixing, who spent 2 years in a correctional centre. He's entrusted with the super over. That didn't go well. And in this game against India, I thought Pakistan, they just lost their way, didn't they? And it was just an inconsistent performance. They should have cruised to victory there. India at one stage, 4-1 outsiders to win that contest. And how they got back into the game is testimony to the best bowler in the world right now, Jasprit Bumrah, who almost needs a World Cup of his own because he is in a league of his own. So India to qualify, and I think USA to qualify because, and I welcome what Rohan's saying about the number of West Indian players representing USA. It's very good to see, and Canada with Curtin, former Barbados, I believe, middle order batsman when I was with you, Phil, in the Barbados commentary box
Yes.
for that first-class season. Nice to see him getting his position in the World Cup, scoring a very good 49. Canada team, number of West Indians in that. So no, it's great to see, and hopefully it's going to be good. The increase in the US interest in cricket and the US economy for cricket was already been described as the third largest in the world after Southeast Asia and England, can benefit West Indies. West Indies have given USA a leg up by hosting this tournament, and hopefully that will be repaid when USA start to pay the serious amounts that we know they will at some point in the future.
David, you talked about the challenges the England players face having moved away from red ball cricket. But if you look at Group B, Scotland on 5 points from 3 games, Australia 4 points from 2 wins in 2 games. Namibia, they've won one of their games, they've got 2 points. Oman, they've played some decent cricket, but have lost 3 games. But England, 4th out of 5 teams, 2 matches, just 1 point from a match that didn't start very well for them against Scotland before it was rained out. And then beaten by Australia. Now, I know you are concerned about the lack of red ball cricket, but did you expect this type of start from England?
I did. Not because of the lack of red ball cricket so much as what happened in the 50-over World Cup, where you've got can you imagine in football a team being knocked out of the World Cup before the group stages, which England happened to England in the 50-over World Cup, and then the management team being given the vote of carrying on for another World Cup? It would never happen, would it? The manager would have paid the price. The captain would probably have paid the price for an unsuccessful World Cup campaign that was very poorly planned and poorly executed. But it's the same team in place for this competition. Management of Joss Butler as captain, who's unproven in terms of captaincy. Fantastic batsman, but his record as a captain, as you know, Phil, West Indies turned them over recently. His record as captain is poor, and Michael Mott, the coach, his record at international level is non-existent, apart from inheriting, a winning T20 side. So they are the defending champions, but I think, and I stick my neck out here, Phil, and say that the 2 qualifiers from this group will be Australia and Scotland. So I think England are already in trouble on net run rate, and who knows what lies ahead. But so it'll mean that England fans will be cheering Australia to beat Scotland. That won't be difficult given a lot of the antagonisms between the 2 home nations. It's keenly felt in rugby and football, not so much in cricket.
Okay.
But it's been very good to see a new crop of young Scottish players coming through. Some of whom are in the county system and some of whom are not. Doing well at the same time as Ireland, who did so well to achieve test status a few years back, have been on the decline. Do you know there's still no first-class cricket being played in Ireland at all? They used COVID as an excuse, first of all, but why is there no first-class cricket being played there now? So you've not got people coming through with the technique that is required at international level, and you'll get found out even by the Canada bowlers. Scotland, they were found out, weren't they? And I say even, and those 2 West Indians in the attack, I thought did well. Gordon, I think originally from Guyana. Forgive me if you've already talked about him, and Johnson. To name 2 there. So lots of interest for West Indies fans in this World Cup, and but yeah, I don't see any. I think one bookmaker's just offered 100 to 1 England. Yeah, you only get £1 on it, Phil. But I put my £1 down on it because I think it is that sort of. They're not 100 to 1 shots, but and I'm not sure. I whisper it quietly, and I shouldn't really say this, but I'm not sure that Jofra is back to his top form. He hasn't played any competitive cricket for 2 years, if you count the club cricket he's been involved with in Barbados. Have you seen him Philip or Rohan, have you actually seen
Yeah,
Joffrey in
I actually
action?
saw him yesterday. He was quite nippy. He was
Right.
quite nippy yesterday. May have been in fact, they played 2 matches at Kensington so far, and one of those games was a game against Scotland, which was pretty much a half of a game, but it was a half of the game that England fielded. So you did get a look at the England bowlers, and that didn't go very well, as you know. So the form in terms of maybe being as effective as one would like, he might not be fully there yet, but the pace is still there thereabouts.
You see, England are suffering from, as World Cup holders often do, World Cup football 1966. The same players were still playing 4 years later. Guess what? They didn't win. And I feel the same with England. The likes of Johnny Bairstow, Moeen Ali, I would be moving on from them. You know, I think Bairstow's fine on a flat track, but encountering the sort of conditions he's likely to be experiencing in either the States or in Guyana, for example, Trinidad, I wouldn't be backing him. And that's where India
Who was
got
this
let
you would
down.
be backing, you said?
Johnny Bairstow.
Oh, okay.
I think his limitations are clear. He's a flat track player. You know, those white ball games, the 50-over games where you can hit through the line, or test matches where the ball isn't moving around. That's Bairstow, but not in these conditions. And it's finding out a few players. You know, India, Rohan referred to some irresponsible shots from India today from some of their players, like Shivan Dubey being a case in point. You know, it's going back to the red ball factor again. And if the players are not used to these sort of conditions because they're used to flat tracks on the franchise circuit, then they could come unstuck. So yeah, I'm actually going to stick my neck out, Phil, and say Australia and Scotland to qualify from that group.
In Group D, gentlemen, both of you. South Africa, 2 wins from 2 matches. We know the reputation of South Africa in global events. Is this South Africa team for real this time, gentlemen? Let's start with you, Rohan.
I was on mute. Yeah. South Africa on paper looks really good, right? And I don't know. They're gonna they may make it to the semifinals, but I'm not gonna put my money on South Africa. Right.
Beyond that, you mean? I mean, it's gonna be hard to stop them going to semifinals. Nobody in that group really is dominant. Sri Lanka's been disappointing. Nepal, obviously, nobody expects them to do a whole lot. They've only played 1 game so far and lost that. Netherlands, a team capable of upsetting other teams, but I don't know that there's that expectation that they're ready to show a level of dominance. So it looks as though, it could very well be South Africa and Bangladesh advancing. But what you're saying is that even if they advance, you don't hold much hope for them going all the way.
No, sorry. No. I like them as a team, but no, something is not going to click when it should. And that's my take.
What's your take, David?
Yeah, I agree with Rohan. So South Africa to qualify, Bangladesh to qualify, but not to progress much further than that. Yeah, I think I agree. There's a missing element in the South Africa team.
So the World Cup champions will not come from Group D?
No.
Okay. So I've saved the best for last, gentlemen. Although David may not agree, but there again, he may agree, having spent so much time in the Caribbean. Group C, West Indies, 2 matches, 2 wins. Afghanistan, 2 matches, 2 wins. New Zealand, probably in some people's minds, the favorite in the group prior to the start of the action. 1 match in which they didn't look as though they looked something like they had a late invitation to participate and didn't really expect it. And that's not the New Zealand team that we know. We know New Zealand is a team that does well in global events, even if they don't go all the way and win. So I wouldn't write New Zealand off at this point in time, gentlemen.
Shall I leap in first, Phil?
Sorry?
Shall I leap in first on that?
Oh yes, go ahead. Go right ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got to hear from you when we've got you there. We don't know when the internet will play tricks again.
I'm in transit and so it's not my normal technical support.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I agree with what you've just said, every word of it, in the sense that New Zealand do, they were the favourite, one of the favourites, and they are a threatening side. But I think they've underprepared. Yeah, they look like they just come together, as you say, a couple of days before, which is probably true. You can't disrespect a tournament like this and expect to perform to your to your best, and then they were nowhere near their best, and I don't think they'll recover from that. So against that, you've got a very well drilled Afghanistan side under Jonathan Trott. Dwayne Bravo is part of the setup, I see. And it all looks very good for Afghanistan, who, effectively came 6th in the 50 over World Cup. So they're entitled to be in the 8-team shakeout. And I think they will get there. There's a lot to like about them. And so, no, it won't surprise you, because I am a West Indies fan, first and foremost, to say that West Indies will certainly be there too. And, we're eagerly anticipating a West Indies Australia final if it somehow Australia can defeat India in the semis. I'm jumping the gun. West Indies to qualify, yes, and thrilled to see that performance from Akeal Hossain. The way he was bowling, unplayable deliveries really showing up. The minnows in Uganda, I love the captaincy of Rovman Powell. I've been a huge fan of his since he took the captaincy. His win record is very good. He seems to have a very nice light touch with the players and sets the tone so that for once, West Indies players are not terrified of failing when they go out to play. And I think that's due to Rovman Powell's, easygoing personality, but he's a tough competitor. And yes, he's only part of the batting lineup, but an important part. And with Andre Russell's return to, serious form in the IPL, for start, you've got a 6 and 7, which would give any previous 6 and 7 West Indies a good, a good showing. So you're then looking at the top 5 and looking for, players to put their hand up there. I'm pleased to see that they have gone for some, experience at the top of the order. And with Johnson Charles' return, I think that's a good move. Anyone that scored a one-day international century against Australia, is worth his place. He was discarded far too early, and I'm really glad to see him back at the top of the order, because he can be very destructive. And the progress that Brandon King has made, almost makes up for my disappointment at the lack of not seeing Carl Mayers in the team. I just can't believe he's not in the best 14, 15. Really can't. I mean, has his stock really fallen so low from what he has achieved in all formats for West Indies?
Well, David, just to answer that question briefly, when you look at the stats, really and truly, as they say, 6 and 1/2 dozen. So there was no compelling statistical evidence in favor of Kyle Mayers. And if you don't do the things necessary to force the hand of the selectors, you leave it up to them, they're going to choose, they're going to go where they feel, they're going to go with their minds. So it's up to the player to put the issue beyond doubt, and he's not done that. So I really don't have an issue in terms of his omission. Yes, I would have loved to see him in the team, but it's up to him to put in the sort of performances that the selectors don't have a choice. Rohan, I noticed a smile when your favorite player was mentioned, Andre Russell, and then he threw in King as well. But I'm gonna start you off with Hossain. What is the significance of this performance from Akeal Hossain against Uganda?
Well, everything worked perfect for him, right? He has his natural, some people call it in swing, right? Going on with the arm, right? Some days, some grounds, it swings a lot. Sometimes it doesn't. And when you have batters who are not that experienced, it's a perfect storm. Good. Maybe more experienced batters would have played him differently and better. But it was just perfect for him yesterday, right? So getting 5 is good. But I want to go back to the New Zealand. For me, New Zealand does not have a chance in this cricket, right? New Zealand has only been to one final and never. That there were. It wasn't even. Was the final? It was a
They lost.
semi-final.
You talking about 50 over?
No, in the T20.
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
They did go to the final in 2021 in UAE, and that was the furthest. They had never gone to any other final before. They went to a semi-final in the last T20 World Cup, and they lost to Pakistan. They do not look like T20 championship material. ODI Test cricket, you can you can put them there. But for T20, I do not see New Zealand as any particular contender. And they lost to Afghanistan. That was a key match for them to win, to have a chance of advancing, right? I think West Indies will beat either Afghanistan or New Zealand. Afghanistan's going to beat the other two winners in that group, Uganda and Papua New Guinea. This is going to be West Indies and Afghanistan going through, right? In terms of the West Indies players, I mean, Brandon King, statistics are there. I think he has the highest average of all the batters right now. The short boundaries in the Caribbean are going to be very helpful to our West Indian batters. If I recall, in the last World Cup in Australia, the big fields led to their demise. A lot of guys got caught on the boundary. Here with Pooran batting so well, Russell, King up top, Johnson, and Powell and Rutherford, they have all of these good hitters. And if you bat sensibly and every batsman bats for at least 3 overs, you're going to put on 200 runs easily. You know, you only have 20 overs to bat, and they have a long batting, right? And once these guys get a good start, I see West Indies in there with Australia, India, and my 4th place team is going to be Afghanistan, or I may sneak in South Africa, but Afghanistan.
Okay, so let me get your top. Let me get your. You're going for your semi-finalists. You've gone past the Super 8, and you've chosen your semi-finalists. Let me hear them.
Yeah.
Let me hear
West Indies. Australia. India. And now the toss-up now is between Afghanistan and South Africa.
Okay.
I have not looked at the permutation if that's possible, but just
right.
based on current
those are your 4. Those are, in your mind, those are the teams that you think are the top. Going to be the top 4. That's irrespective of who is playing who. Of course, that will determine the you know. Okay, so that's a good note. David, if you're there, who are your 4? How do you see who are the top 4 for you?
Well, mostly in agreement with Rohan. I say mostly because I agree with the teams: West Indies, Australia, India, Afghanistan. For me, is definite 4th. And the only thing I disagreed with in everything Rohan said is calling Afghanistan minnows in this format. No way. Okay, because I
didn't call them minnows. My apologies. I didn't call them minnows.
Okay.
So,
no,
I heard him use the word minnows, but I don't think it was
pedantic.
reference to. It wasn't with reference back to Afghanistan. That somebody's going to beat the other minnows in the group. He didn't mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize because Afghanistan, as you know, and you're a stats man, Rohan, so you know that Afghanistan were in the top 6, 50 over. If you look at the recent form and the under inspired leadership, Rashid Khan, who's back to his something approaching his best, it just looks a very, very happy, settled unit and formidable competitors, I think, in T20 format. So, given the issues we have with South Africa. And there's always going to be something that goes wrong with South Africa. I think that's what you said, Rohan, and I kind of agree. I know exactly what you mean. There'll be something that goes wrong.
They'll find a way. They'll find a way to mess it up.
Yeah, they'll find a way.
Okay, gentlemen, thanks so much. Any closing comments from either of you?
No, just good luck to the West Indies for sure. And we haven't mentioned the West Indies bowlers. And there's lot to feel good about there. Because Moti continues to do well, doesn't he? As well. So and the choice with Russell back to his best bowling wise, it means that West Indies have got a really good all round side. So it does augur well, and it augurs well for the setup.
Okay, gentlemen. Well, thanks very much for joining us. Hopefully, David, we understand that you are in transit, as you put it. You are a busy man. And I think the World Cup has added to the various responsibilities that you have and your responsibilities where that is concerned. So we do understand the challenges that you face today, and we are glad that despite those challenges, you were able to join us. Rohan, I know you rushed back from the game to be with us. Thanks for that. I hope we didn't break any speed limits. I know you guys have got a lot of cameras out there, so I'm only hoping that you won't be getting any tickets in the mail.
And I hope so too.
Okay. All right. That's our show. Thanks for watching. Join us again soon for another episode of Anything Cricket. Let's talk. The Straight Drive edition.